Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Red Eye. Doku is literally living the Red Eye dream. He's been up all damn night. So he has some thoughts and he wants us to say things. Here you go, Doku. All yours, mate.
I was gonna say, when am I not up all night?
Hey, boy.
Anyways, yeah. Let's let's have a discussion. So, Jensen, I know you laugh when you say, "Yeah, we live in the land of the free."
Come on, really? Yeah, you guys wouldn't know. Right. England never actually claims the land of the free, but I actually think we're freer than you guys are, which says a lot.
Well, I don't know. I might have to give you some pushback on that one. I still can't get arrested over a tweet yet. I know that's your favorite word, yet.
Oh God! Thing is, okay, people don't use it enough. It describes what's going on perfectly. Everything is about to go horribly, horribly wrong. So it's yet. What is the confusion? Just it's one word, three letters. Yet.
And it is an appropriate word because Miss Murder, hello. It
Hey
it
guys.
is it is appropriate because okay, yeah, we can look at Count Dankula and what happens in the UK. You say, "Oh, you made an insensitive tweet. We're gonna send police officers to your house. We might have to arrest you and put you to trial. This and that." Okay. Um. Well, now apparently we have we have federal agencies investigating members of Congress. I know Tim Pool covered this. I know people keep laughing at Tim Pool, like, "Oh, you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. None of this could happen." Do you think so? Did like let's look at where the logical progression of this of our state of society is taking us. Do you think we're moving in a direction where you couldn't be arrested for a tweet? Because I'm not so confident about making that assertion at this point in time.
Sorry, just taking the Mickey. They're calling me Mad Dodge, so I'm going, woo, I'm a ghost. What? Too soon?
I'm just gonna go ahead and drink for that one.
You know, I'd have said that it's like the first day, so it's not like I'm changing, and I'm not being rude. You know, I can sit here and pretend, but I was given this job by Ellen, and so I'm going to do this job. And if people don't like it, well, it's their choice.
Yep, no, you're upholding your end of the bargain. And honestly, let's be blunt. If you were to change because of circumstances, you'd be having an extra poltergeist in your house.
Yeah, except instead of trains rattling, I'd hear beer bottles clinking, and you know it.
Well, you'd hear beer bottles clinkling, and then one random bottle of whiskey with I don't know, maybe a rag put in the top and a lighter background.
Yeah.
Might might smell some sulfur or something. Oh, what do I smell burning?
Yeah. No, you're right. Sorry, I interrupted you. Carry on, man. Carry on.
No, no, you're good. I'm laughing. I'm being terrible. I'm laughing at my own joke because I'm cringe as hell. So, poltergeist aside, back on topic.
Yeah.
So, so I've had conversations with people over the garbage heap that is known as Twitter,
Hmm.
and I find myself amused and annoyed at the same time. So this notion of on the day that is as bad as the day where some people did some things that happened, just previously that YouTube won't allow us to talk about, obviously.
I really want to say it. I want to. I really,
I know
really
you do. I can feel the tension, but
Well,
so
technically, there's nothing wrong with pointing out that a specific date, we could say that.
there was a date where if you count 5 fingers on one hand and add one finger from the other, that happened in January, and the number came out to be a 6. You know what date we're talking about. So
No.
so I've had some conversation with people on Twitter about this, and I find this incredibly more frustrating. Where it's a
Simply.
bunch.
Sorry, I was just responding to CSG.
And CSG, don't. You're not missing anything. You should actually consider it a blessing in disguise. Twitter is a cesspool as always. But
I'll
I've
just point out, one sec. Sorry, dude.
go for it.
One thing to remember, okay, ladies and gentlemen, this guy came from Line Chat, which is, if you want to call it the most polite thing you can call it the Wild West of the internet. And he calls Twitter a cesspool. Just think about that.
That's because it. So I guess before we segue into this whole conversation, I'll tell you the difference between Line Chat and Twitter because it doesn't take that long to explain. Line Chat lets us do pretty much whatever the hell it is we want because they don't police their site at all. What that results in is a group of people who are absolute assholes and will do some really fucked up shit. But unlike Twitter, if you try doing some really abhorrent shit, well, you have a bunch of assholes that are willing to go above and beyond to ruin you, but they actually have some morals behind it. Like, I don't know, Twitter likes to ban people for political opinions, but they let certain, I don't know, images of sexual content that might or might not involve things that are not necessarily legal just kind of go unchecked. Whereas online chat, they might figure out who you are and where you work for, who your family is, and hey, that's your own damn fault for being an idiot on the internet. We're going to go ahead and make your life an ever living hell for being a piece of shit. There is a difference. I would argue that line chat is far more moral than Twitter ever could hope to be.
You realize what you've said, okay? I want you to think back just before you carry on. Are you certain that is how you feel? This is Line Chat we're talking about.
I'm 100% certain because again, if you want to if you want to be a if you want to be an idiot on the internet and do immoral things, by all means, go ahead and be an idiot on the internet and do immoral things. But much like free speech, when the consequences of your actions come back to bite you in the proverbial behind, well, you're going to have to answer for that too.
I have no sympathy for you, Miss Murder. I really don't. I don't know if you're reading this, Doku, but she wants to make an account on Line Chat. I have no sympathy.
Yeah, see, that's the thing
Even
on
I.
live chat. You can make an account, but the one thing that you're gonna have to do is, unlike Twitter or Gab or whatever other garbage ass social media website you can find, line chat you have to actually connect with people and find groups and actually grow a network. It's not like you can just join a group or put a hashtag and then all of a sudden you're in the conversation. It Yeah, you want to talk about gatekeeping, conversation I'm not going to get into. Line chat is the definition of gatekeeping because unless someone invites you to a chat room, it you're you're just going to be sitting there floating in the void with nothing to do. It It's quite literally the way it works. It's a pure peer to peer social media site in the truest sense of the term.
And that was easy for him to say. Not.
No, easy as hell.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on. So I was just taking Mickey.
No, you're good. So the thing that's been annoying me about Twitter is, or specifically this conversation that's been occurring on Twitter in regards to the 6th. It's like, is a bunch of Trump supporters. They were all armed, all insurrectionists, domestic terrorists, this and that. It's like, okay, let's break that down real quick. So there was one person who was actually killed due to use of an actual weapon. That was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by Capitol Police. We all know that. So that's one death on the Trump side. The other 3 out of the 5, one was a stroke, one was a heart attack, and I don't remember what the third one was, but those were also all people in attendance to protest, riot, whatever you want to call it. Pretty sure they didn't storm the Capitol Hill building. Maybe I think the last one was like thrown off a scaffolding or something. Again, not necessarily something you can really call a violent insurrection. Stupid, yes. Violent insurrection, yeah, you're stretching there. The last one would have been the police officer who, now that more information has come out and we're past the garbage news cycle, turns out that death actually happened in regards to medical complications that had absolutely nothing to do with being struck over the head by a fire extinguisher. Thus, that media narrative is, well, false. You won't hear that reported in the news. You'll see retractions and corrections, but you won't hear it talked about or reported. So, as far as an armed insurrection goes, there's 2 people that I've heard of who were arrested on illegal weapon charges. We don't even know if these were actual firearms. They could have been knives that exceeded 6 inches. Don't know. Haven't looked into it, but as far as I'm concerned, even if it was firearms, well, they didn't shoot anyone now, did they? So,
True.
For being an armed insurrection, they're either really, really bad at it, especially considering that there wasn't really any security there. Kind of surprising. And no one on the security side of things seems to have died, especially not due to acts of violence in terms of trying to, violently overthrow the government through the use of force. You could say they wanted to obstruct the process. I guess it depends on your definition of violence. Like, they stormed the building. They're trying to intimidate people. I guess you can make that argument. I'm not going to say you can't. But what you can't say is that they were threatening to kill people because they didn't want them to pass the vote. That just didn't happen. That's bullshit. That's nonsense. But all of that aside, sweeping the whole, it was an armed group of insurrectionists. Yeah, I see a bunch of people that aren't carrying guns. Try again, please.
Yeah, Doku. CSG asked, didn't 2 cops die in the Capitol riot? I'll leave that one to you to tell them.
I know one did, is the one I was talking about earlier, and that was the one that they claimed was hit over the head with a fire extinguisher, which, again, now we know that's not what killed him. We don't even know if he actually was hit over the head. Autopsy shows that there was no evidence of blunt force trauma, so for all we know, that was actually completely fabricated. The second one, I believe, he fell and hit his head. But I don't know if he actually died from that. I believe he was hospitalized, but I don't think he died from it. But I could be wrong. So if somebody wants to fact check me on that one, feel free to go ahead, because I could be wrong on that. But from my knowledge, only one Capitol Police officer died and had nothing to do with violence based on the side of the protesters, rioters, whatever you want to call them.
Yes, Sergi, yes, that is correct. Apparently, he was the one that they pretended was slapped with the fire extinguisher, and I believe he had a heart condition, and that ended up with him passing on. Am I correct, or am I getting information wrong here, Doku?
No, you are correct. And that is the same guy where they said he got hit over the head with a fire extinguisher and that's what caused him to die. And then they thought it was because he breathed in an irritant or caused asphyxiation, or maybe it was due to the stress of the situation that he died. And then I believe it was his mom actually came out several days later, maybe a week or two later, and said, no, it actually had nothing to do with the riots whatsoever. In fact, he actually called, I think it was his cousin, and he sounded in good spirits. He sounded fine. And then he died due to an unrelated medical complication.
So
So,
what you're telling me is that they're going to say he died of the coof, because after all, they'll use anything for that.
well, as the saying goes, never let a good tragedy go to waste. And, well, got to advance the political agenda one way, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
all of this aside, it annoys me that first off, you're never going to see the media actually issue retractions, or you're never going to see this like, oh, the story was wrong. You'll see it from people like us on YouTube actually trying to follow up and, you know, tell people what actually fucking happened. But that's not the reason I'm actually here, or what I want to talk about. The thing that concerns me more is the general, I forget his name. Um he's not a an active general at this point, ex-general.
Doku
Who
points against from CSG. Where did you get that story from? Pointing out about the copper. I think he'd like a link if you're capable.
Yeah, let me go ahead and see if I can find the link for you. And while I'm doing that, I'll go ahead and talk about what I find to be slightly more concerning.
The general, right?
Yep, I got to pull it up. I know you can find I know Crowder and Temple talked about it, and I know they had the links in their chats. I don't have them bookmarked, so my apologies for that.
Yeah. This was a very, very off the cuff stream, just so as people know. Don't expect even the slightest hint of professionalism. We're pretty much making up as we go along, apart from that information, which is disturbingly accurate, which gets a bit worrying, especially with some of the things he's about to say. So, yeah, that'll be entertaining.
Yep, they will. And here we go. So this is a make sure that this is updated. Okay, so this is from February 15th. So I'll go ahead and we'll read through this actually, just so.
Well, actually, if anything, just drop the link straight into the chat. That way, CSG can check it out himself.
Oh, I was gonna screen share it.
Oh, okay, whichever works for you.
And no, CSG, I know you're not trying to I know you're trying to challenge me. It's I I appreciate people actually wanting to get accurate information. Just let me know if the screen share is working.
Yep, it's working.
So the first thing I have an issue with is this title from the National Review. The Times corrects the record on Officer Sitnik's death, sort of. Can you clarify a little bit better? This is from the 15th of this month, 2021. A few days ago, the New York Times quietly updated its report, published over a month earlier, asserting that Capitol Police Officer Brian Setnik had been killed by being struck with a fire extinguisher during the January 6th riot. According to the update, new information has emerged regarding the death of the Capitol Police Officer Brian Setnik that questions the initial cause of his death provided by officials close to Capitol Police. As detailed in the column last week, what the Times calls new information actually began emerging the same day as the paper filed its January 8th report. The report was, and still is, entitled Capitol Police Officer Dies from Injuries in Pro-Trump Rampage. It was not the only such Times report from that day. There was another entitled He Dreamed of Being a Police Officer, then was killed by a pro-Trump mob, in which the Times asserted On Wednesday, pro-Trump supporters attacked the Citadel of Democracy, i.e., the Capitol, overpowered Mr. Setnick, 42, and struck him in the head with a fire extinguisher, according to two law enforcement officials. With a bloody gash in his head, Mr. Setnick was rushed to the hospital and placed on life support. He died Thursday evening. Yet, as early as the morning of January 8th, KOHU in Houston reported that Setnick had died from a stroke. The KHOU story made no mention of the officers being struck by a fire extinguisher. It did claim, however, that the stroke occurred at the Capitol during the riots, and a caption under the officer's photograph stated that he died of injuries sustained during the riot at the Capitol. The headline of the KHOU story attributes the conclusion that a stroke was the cause of death to the head of the Capitol Police Union. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that name. Story continues. Let's see. Does this actually? Okay. Let's actually find the meat and potatoes of this. My aforementioned call-up noted that Fox News' Tucker Carlson, relying on a report from the website Revolver, had just reported that Setnick was not taken to the hospital directly from the Capitol. To the contrary, not only had the officer made it back to police headquarters, he had texted his brother hours after the siege, stating that although he had been pepper sprayed twice, he was in good shape. Moreover, Carlson pointed out to a CNN report on February 2nd to the effect that, according to unidentified law enforcement officials, medical examiners had found no evidence of blunt force trauma on Setnick's body and concluded the fire extinguisher account was not true. I have focused on the story for two reasons. First, I am one of the analysts who uncritically relied on the Times' initial reporting, deducing from it the conclusion that Setnick had been murdered by the rioters. Not a long logical leap if you credit the assertion that a police officer was bashed over the head with a lethal object by rioters who intentionally and forcibly confronting security forces, which is fair. A lot of us fell for that, let's be honest. You get over the head with a fire extinguisher, and later you're reported dead. Yeah, you're going to assume, okay. But again, don't assume. Regurgitating, this is what I like. Julie Kelly took me to task again yesterday for having regurgitated the narrative that Setnick was murdered, which I certainly did do, although I am not, as she describes, a political pundit of the never Trump right. Because I repeated a very serious allegation that had not been supported by credible evidence from identifiable sources, I thought it was important to make clear, to the extent it is in my power to do so, that there is now immense reason to doubt the original reporting, while confessing, with a link to the column which I included the murder allegation, that I was guilty as any other analyst or reporter who amplified this dubious account. Strong words, but not wrong in the assertion. Second, and more significantly, the death of Officer Setnick became a building block for the House's impeachment of former President Trump and of the allegations poised by Democrat House impeachment managers that were publicly filed in their pretrial brief on February 2nd. By then, there was already substantial reason to question the fire extinguisher allegations. And that gets into the whole impeachment trial. I'm not going to get into that, but that's the crux of the story right there. It was the evidence was not substantiated. There was no significant reason to believe that's what happened. And now that more and more information is coming out, there's more and more reason to believe that the whole thing was, well, falsely reported, or as the former president would like to say, fake news. But we could get into how the impeachment of a private citizen after having left office based on falsified evidence or incorrect evidence or unsubstantiated evidence is worrying in and of itself. Again, not why I'm here. What I find disturbing is the individual that Nancy Pelosi wants to go forward with looking into the events of the 6th. this general, yeah, I'm not going to take the time to look up his name. It should not be difficult to find. But he has come out and said, and there's clips of it on YouTube, people have talked about it, where if the events that happened on the 6th were perpetrated in any other circumstance, any other situation, for example, in Iraq or Afghanistan, that the military would have come in and raided or bombed them, blown them up, killed them. And this is his stance on things. This individual has also been noted as saying that you should not be allowed to exercise your Second Amendment rights, you should not be allowed to carry a firearm, concealed or openly, while attending freedom of assembly, right to peacefully protest. He's against that as well. He's also on record saying very, very strong opinions about certain people in political office that tend to be of a political affiliation, generally Republicans. Doesn't like them. He's clearly politically motivated individual, despite being a retired general. I believe he even said that one congressman or congresswoman, I forgot who it is, should be placed on a no-fly list because she supports the Second Amendment. The guy is a political pundit. The guy is a political tool. And as much as I respect our armed forces, thank you for your sacrifice, thank you for your service, but with the words that you are speaking, with the things that you are advocating for, not only goes directly against your oath to uphold the Constitution and defend the citizens of this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, but you're part of the military. You should know that the military, in the sense that you are part of it, not the National Guard, not the feds, you're a general in the United States military. You are not to turn your weapons on civilians. What you're advocating for goes completely against the oath that you should have taken and uphold, regardless of your political affiliations, regardless of what you think the situation of the country is. You do not turn your weapons on American citizens, let alone advocating for use of military force against American citizens, civilians. In a situation on the 6th where you can see anyone with two working eyeballs and a brain can see this mob, this crowd, was not armed. They were not allowed to be. If I remember correctly, there was only two instances of people being detained, arrested, and charged for unlawful possession of a weapon on January 6th. And we don't even know if that was an actual firearm, because you can be in possession of a knife that is longer than 6 inches, and it's illegal in DC. But here you have a guy who's a military general, former military general, stating that you should not be allowed to exercise your Second Amendment rights. You should not be allowed to exercise your First Amendment rights if it means it's going to be a threat to the state. That's what this guy is. This guy is not defending the Constitution. He is not defending American citizens. This guy is a tool. This guy is a tool for people who seek to consolidate power and to use threat of force to make you bend the knee, to give up your constitutional rights, to threaten you. That's what this person is. This is the person that Pelosi wants to investigate members of Congress because of January 6th. This is the guy that wants to seize, through whatever means necessary, phone records. This is the type of guy who views January 6th the same way as 9/11. This is the guy that wants to trample on people's constitutional rights who could have done nothing wrong other than just being there or texting someone who was there despite not having engaged at all. This is the guy that Nancy Pelosi wants. The same Nancy Pelosi who wanted manned machine guns, requested manned machine guns. Ed, I'm sure anybody that's in the military knows a manned machine gun is not an M249. That's firing 5.56 rounds. That doesn't require one person. That requires one person. A manned machine gun is a much higher caliber. That's usually used against armored vehicles. Mm-hmm. What do you think the type of collateral damage that would have been? That same general who thinks it should be okay to use military force against civilians who have done nothing wrong, who thinks your Second Amendment is a danger to this country, who thinks your First Amendment is a danger to this country, is the person Nancy, I want armed machine guns Pelosi wants to investigate congressmen for potentially allowing people to walk unarmed into the Capitol building and resulted in how much damage? I mean, I heard there was like 1 or 2 fires that were they tried to light. They broke some windows. 4 Trump supporters died. 1 police officer died that apparently is now of unrelated consequence. It seems like the only death as a result of direct force, as a direct cause of action, actually was on the side of the quote insurrectionist, the domestic terrorist. And her name was Ashley Babbitt. She got shot in the neck by Capitol Hill police officers. Stupid? Yeah, probably stupid to be there, but then again, if I'm walking through the halls of Congress and I'm unarmed, hey, what am I going to do? Am I going to charge you with a freaking flagpole?
We have a guest coming on, Doku. Hey, CSG. How's it going, man?
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, CSG?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I actually just wanted to come on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just saying, look like Fight wants to come on as well, so this is fun.
I don't actually have. Well, let me rephrase that. On the generality of what Doku is saying, I don't actually have much of a problem with. I could possibly get into general specifics or actual specifics of what he's saying that I may disagree with. But yeah, the FBI shouldn't be going against Constitution for anybody's personal rights and freedoms, whether you're in a legislative branch or a private citizen. So yeah, I'm completely with Doku on that one. I just wanted to come from more of a I suppose a more left-leaning point of view to try and sort of bring a bit more balance to the conversation. But overall, I agree with the sentiment.
No, and that's fair. And I know I'm going to have my, I tend to be a little more right of center, kind of, more strong against, I don't like government telling me what to do. So, but the thing that disturbs me about this, and you're not gonna see me sitting here trying to defend what happened on the 6th. It was stupid. And don't get me wrong, I think it was incredibly stupid. You're not going to achieve anything by doing that. But morning, Farty. The thing that disturbs me is what's being completely overlooked, specifically in the media, and how this is being spun and portrayed, is you have people in positions of power, whether it's military, Congress, who were talking about use of actual military force against civilians who might or may not have done anything wrong, and just sort of saying like, well, if they did this and, this was Afghanistan, we would have drone strike them. This has happened before. Now, granted, it wasn't on United States soil.
Before you carry on, but there's a difference for doing something that's in a foreign country while you're under the guise of war or the fog of war, so to speak, than doing it to your own nation's citizens. You can try to say, oh, but there is there is something that's, a conflation of interests. It's like, no, a nation shouldn't be bombing its own fucking people. If you're in the middle of war and you have people that are not part of your nation trying to go onto your embassy, yeah, you kind of have every right to actually stop those foreign citizens from invading your embassy. Your own citizens, that's the reason why you have the First and Second Amendment.
Well, that's the thing.
There is a problem with this because the whole thing is enemies foreign and domestic, and it's the domestic part they're really trying to wield now because everybody who was involved in the January 6th is now a white supremacist, and that's now terrorism and all this kind of stuff. So basically, anybody that dissents from their opinions, oh, you must be white supremacist, therefore you're a terrorist, and we're terrorists, so drone strike, motherfucker.
On this, so there's 2 points to touch on here. The first one is in regards to using the military against a United States citizen. This happened under the Obama administration, and I know it's a point of contention. I'm just going to use it as an example because it is known that despite that this 16-year-old kid, I forget his name, but he was advocating for jihad. Obama knew he was there. He still signed off on the strike anyways. Okay.
Are you talking about the person who used to make watches and you won sort of a prize for what watches that this is the kid and that was there that got bombed as a so to speak a side piece, an accessory to the fact?
I believe so.
Jesus, that she is. Jesus.
Hang on, wait, what? Did Clockboy get fucking drone strike, did he?
Yeah,
but it wasn't him. It wasn't actually him. People bring it up that because he was an accessory to the fact. What Doku's saying is that they actually targeted actual groups of people, but because this boy was visiting, I believe he was actually from Canada. I don't think he was actually an American. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
That's not the same one then. He was American, and they did know he was there, but they authorized the drone strike anyways. The more concerning part about this, though, it's concerning enough that they knew he was there, he was an American citizen, but what they bombed was a civilian restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where the government comes from. I mean, I'm even though I'm probably more left-leaning than what most people are in this room, probably that are watching, and I'll own that. I don't mind owning that. But I would still go to the point of fact of saying government shouldn't bomb anything to do with civilian targets, including if they are in war. I think we can agree on that one.
It's kind of interesting to see the rules of engagement over in Iraq, where the jihadis quickly found out that because of religious sentiment, the Americans weren't going to touch a mosque, so all they had to do was run into a mosque and hide, and that was the end of that. But when they went into Syria, and the first monkey hid in the mosque, the Syrian Arab army just blew the mosque up. And when the terrorists went, oh, no, shenanigans, they go, well, if you don't want your mosques blown up, don't hide in them.
I get it. It's just, though, I think our rules of engagement should be held at a higher standard than what, should we say, third world countries and possible, you could argue this, but possible war criminal dictates would be leading. I mean, I think we can hold ourselves to a higher standard, can't we?
Well,
so I'm gonna take an unpopular.
In the Philippines, back in about 100 years ago, when the Americans were there, they had a problem with Islamic terrorism and stuff like that all the way back then, and they quickly fixed it by putting they found 10 culprits and they put them all up against a wall. They shot 9 of them, and they made they dipped the bullets in fucking pig's blood, shot 9 of them, and then said to the 10th one, right, go back, tell your mates, this is what's going to happen if we catch you the next time. And they had not a problem with it for bloody decades.
Yeah, again, though, I wouldn't really want to emulate anything that the Thai government has come anywhere near close to actually replicating in the West, simply and wholly because I actually value my democracy and freedom, and if they can do that to one group of people, they'll do it to others.
Well, so I want to just get the whole Obama drone strike an American citizen thing out of the way.
Yeah, sorry. I have a tendency of doing stuff like this.
No worries. Because my opinion is actually rather not popular amongst the right. Obama knew the guy was there. Yes. 16-year-old kid. Yes. Well, he was also preaching jihad, and he was hanging out with jihadis who are known terrorists. Should Obama have signed off on it? No. No, he shouldn't have. Did he? Yes. Did the kid die as a result of it? Yes. But at the same time, that being said, that is a failure on Obama's side, or on Obama's part. It shouldn't have happened. That said, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. It's called accountability. Is it fucked? Yes, it is. Technically, Obama did break the law. He broke the terms of engagement. He knowingly killed an American citizen, knowing he was there while he was in a civilian restaurant with a bunch of known terrorists. Now he could have taken other options. He could have sent in SEAL Team 6. You could have approached the situation a different way, but he didn't. It is what it is. But that argument aside, it sets a precedent for the fact that the government will knowingly kill its own citizens. That Obama set that precedent. Technically, so did Lincoln, but that's a conversation for another time.
I mean, there's an argument for any country that has a form of death penalty. You could have the argument of, well, that means that the government's killing people.
Well, and this is where the right comes from, is that they killed him without the right to due process or a fair trial, which he should have because he was an American citizen. That's the big argument you're going to hear over and over again.
It's funny you say that, because that's actually partially the reason why we got rid of the death penalty out here. Because the last bloke we hung was a guy in Melbourne who was a prison escapee, and they tried to make out that the stolen rifle that he had was used to kill a prison guard, when it was very, very clear that this bloke didn't even know how to operate the rifle, even take it off safe, because he kept dropping live rounds every bloody where, like trying to cock the gun, just like click, shit, click. And it was another prison guard who actually shot the bloke he was blamed for. And the courts went, no, fuck it, we're going to blame it on the prisoner, so we're going to hang him. And the uproar out of that was the whole reason why we got rid of it.
Mm.
Well, and so
I will say that. Go on.
Oh, no, actually, you guys finish your point, because I want to move on to what I find more concerning about what's going on now and the rhetoric going on now. So you guys go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was that goes to show you that if people do get outraged enough, then there is enough will of the people, so to speak, to be able to change government policy. You wouldn't be able to do that if you were in Thailand or in other Asian other Asian Oriental dragon style governments, so to speak.
And that's basically the point of January the 6th. So many people were outraged because they could actually see what was happening in real time. The dog leg in the ballot counts and all this kind of stuff. People just completely ignoring things that were blatantly obvious and had absolute evidence to prove the point and all this. And people just jumped up and went, "No, fuck off. We're not taking this shit. You know, we've got to speak up while we can." And look what's happened since. That's Nancy Pelosi. Fucking, I think that putting National Guard on street corners is absolutely horrific and abhorrent. But it's okay when she's under threat. Let's lock down the Capitol. No one can say anything. And if, like now, even bloody, social media is cracking down on it, we're probably going to get this stream taken down because we're talking about it. But, partially the thing with Facebook having a sook in Australia recently is because we're reporting shit that obviously the Americans aren't even getting about their own country. Like a lot of people that you speak to don't even know how racist friggin' Biden is. And they're really shocked when you say, look, he said this on national telly. He's feeling up little old ladies and young girls. What, really? We never saw that.
Onto this, that gets to the point I wanted to make that I find disturbing. And it's in regards to Pelosi and this general in particular.
Yeah, that was supposed to be a segue.
Yep. So, okay, we have the whole drone strike, kill American citizens, blah, blah. We have that set. That's one thing. We're talking about a group of individuals who, what they did was stupid. What they did you could consider to be a riot. They were not armed. Despite what the media is trying to spin, they were not armed. This was not a group of hundreds or thousands of people walking and charging the Capitol building, bashing in windows by the hundreds with, guns slung around their shoulders. Like, no, it was a bunch of people waving flags at the worst. The only casualty as a result of discharge of a firearm was one of the protesters shot by Capitol Police. And yet, due to everything that happened, now you have a sitting member of Congress, the House Speaker herself, and whoever denied her request to have manned machine guns, crew manned machine guns, they're at the Capitol building and denied it. Thank you for having foresight, because that would be absurd. But the fact that you have the person who's an ex-military general who doesn't believe you should be entitled to your First or Second Amendment rights be essentially being nominated to what's the word I'm looking for? To head the investigation into other sitting members of Congress and other private citizens who might have had nothing to do with this whatsoever, to seize phone records, to essentially use what's the equivalent of the Patriot Act to violate your right to privacy, to try to bring people up on charges because the political rhetoric has gone so extreme and they want to consolidate power to such an extreme level that they do not even believe you have rights, because as long as they brand you an ist or an ism or domestic terrorist just because you have a certain type of political beliefs, as far as they're concerned, you don't even deserve the rights that are afforded to citizens under the Constitution. It is a very dangerous, very scary thing that these people are doing, what they're advocating for, and the fact that it isn't even being talked about is even more terrifying. This should scare everyone, regardless of what side of the political coin you stand on, because it doesn't matter if you vote Democrat, it doesn't matter if you vote Republican. If you go against the establishment, they're saying that they're willing to use the military to bring you to heel. And if you don't, they're willing to kill you. That's basically what they're telling you without flat out saying it. They're saying they will put manned machine guns on the streets, and if you dare peacefully assemble, and oh my God, it's a riot and insurrection, pull the trigger.
Well,
that's what they're advocating for.
It gets even worse than that. That the monkey who's now going to be your version of the defense minister, whatever, some general, he's black fella, but he's already come out and said, right, and this is how they're going to do it. Like years ago when, say, Tiananmen Square happened, you know, everyone was saying, oh, that can't happen here because our troops will never fire on our own citizens and things of that nature. And you see the rhetoric in the division of the United States at the moment where, you know, bloody Biden supporters want to drown fucking Trump supporters and things of that nature. And this friggin' defense minister monkey, he's already come out and said, right, we're going to weed out sexual harassment, bigotry, and white supremacy. And you got fuckwits like Nancy fucking, oh, that's Nancy, fucking coming out saying that every Trump supporter is a white supremacist. So basically, you're not for us, you're against us. And this defense minister monkey is going to kick all the Trump supporters, wants to try and kick all the Trump supporters out of the military. Therefore, you've only got the brainwashed masses who, you know, believe the bullshit that Biden was fucking touting and all this kind of stuff. And you'll be left with just cops and fucking soldiers who are those kinds of brain dead idiots that when told shoot on the civilian population will go, okay.
I mean, I completely not understand, before everybody else carries on, I completely not understand where Doku's point is. I mean, I do think that you went a little bit hyperbolic towards the end. I do see where you're going down, and I do understand your logic behind it, but I would say it was a little bit too hyperbolic for me, but I do understand the point in general, which...
CSG, I want to say something real quick, because I would actually like to hear your opinion on this. If this was just rhetoric coming from Pelosi herself, that would be one thing. Abhorrent, but one thing. If this was Don Lemon or Tucker Carlson or Brian Stelter, I would laugh it off as just media overhyping something. The fact that you're seeing this rhetoric coming not only from Pelosi, but also from a former general of the United States military, that is a concern.
Oh, I agree.
One that we should not take lightly.
Oh, no. I completely agree with your point. What I was actually meaning was your hyperbolic nature of your conclusion, not the fact of these people are being, in a lack of a better term, completely and utterly bigoted and completely utterly, should we say, Chinese in the way of their thinking, as in government, not as in the race. as in we're going to suppress you by any means necessary. And finally,
Communist.
actually, more of a case of suppressors or fascist. I don't really think you can call the Chinese government actually communist. They're more fascist than. But anyway, besides the point on political compasses, I do agree with you, Doku, that I do think that it comes to a point where the rhetoric from both sides, and I will throw in both sides, is causing more of a more political divide. And with the more and more the political divide seems to widen as a chasm, the people that were the ones that were trying to bring people together are now falling to the wayside and picking one side or the other for whatever reason, or dropping out of politics. Now, normally most people would have dropped out of politics, but it seems for some reason, probably because of the pandemic, that they don't actually have too much to do. So they're actually now coming in and going, well, my mate's this side or my mate's that side, so I'm going to go with that way without actually looking at anything and taking people's arguments on face value. I mean, I disagree with different parts of the voter fraud and so on and so forth, but I would rather be able to listen and listen and being able to hear why people think what they do and what they say, rather than just going, oh yeah, well, you would think that because you support Trump. I mean, that's just completely dismissive and should never be any way that you handle any political discord. I just don't see how that is any way indicative of bringing any form of democracy back to the way that you want. People moan about the fact of it being a two-party state in the US or a two-party state in the UK, but yet they would rather have their own political parties and not have the political discord across the aisle to try and prove your points of why you're correct. They just want to go, well, no, I'm correct because.
That's fair, but more the point that I'm getting at is that the rhetoric has gotten so inflammatory and so divisive that we're actually at the point where people who are in positions of power, we're not talking about people like you and me, and we're not talking about people who would go out in the streets waving a flag and saying, stop the steal or, Black Lives Matter. We're talking about actual elected officials who actually hold power, talking about potentially using military force, potential use of lethal force against their political opponents because they perceive them to be a threat to what they say our democracy. That is a very, very, very concerning thing. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. That's literally what they're talking about. That this is not me exaggerating.
And
I mean, the
CSG,
reason why
you'll find too that a lot of the politicians that aren't leaving, yeah, true. While a lot of it has to do with the pandemic, quite a few of them are career politicians. They don't actually have anything to fall back on. Like Bob Dole, he's got his different companies and all this kind of stuff. Other people have, investments in Raytheon and other defence companies and things of that nature. But you got people like AOC, for example, who couldn't get a job even as a barmaid.
I was more talking about the people, as in you have more and more civilians, if you want to put it in that way, that are now following these more, should we say, outrageous ideas because other people that are less left or what they perceive to be as more like me and you are starting to follow them. So if more people go, well, I like AOC, they may not actually like AOC, but because my mate Fred likes AOC, I'm going to like Fred and I'm going to walk with Fred and I'm going to support what Fred says rather than supporting AOC. But indirectly, they're supporting AOC and the rhetoric that comes out of that. So that's what I meant by those types of people that would have supported Fred would have come out and gone, normally, why the fuck are you supporting AOC? She's a douchebag. And they're not doing that anymore because now politics have become more of about a flag waving competition than it has about standing by your principles and what you actually want.
But yeah, well, with the politicians though themselves, none of them, or most of them, won't leave. Partially because of the pandemic, and partially because they've got nothing to fall back on. Even if there was a job, they wouldn't be able to leave if they wanted to because they're not really qualified to do anything else. So they're basically running around covering their own asses, hoping they're going to keep their job by the end of it.
I don't know. Should you go back to bartending?
Well, yeah, up until the first time someone accidentally brushes her on the bum.
I mean, you wouldn't do it on purpose, would you?
Well, no, she could walk past your table facing backwards and accidentally rub her bum on the side of the table, and oh, geez, now you're up for a sexual harassment charge because you're at the other end of the room.
Well, if you're that big, I mean, that's just on you, isn't it?
Well, some of us are. I mean, oh, what? Hey, who said that?
I don't know. I think that's called body shaming.
Damn,
I
sorry
made-
about that. I'm
I-
too right. I'm too right wing. I knew when I come into these spaces, I knew I'd go too right wing.
I need 7 airline seats, CSG. What do you not realize about this?
Oh,
I'm
that's
that
all right. I
weird.
need the whole plane.
Nice. Miss Murder, I've already actually suggested this. I'm just going to go with the simple one of the Thunderdome. 2 go in, 1 comes out. You throw in a knife about halfway through and let them go at it. It would just save so much problems.
2 go in, and then 10 minutes later, a grenade goes in.
I forget who always says it, but somebody always says, I think it's either on these streams or on Jesse's streams, but just bring back dueling. If politicians want to settle things
Yeah,
with
that's
violence,
memes. Yeah, that's memes.
yeah, memes. Yeah, bring back. I'm with memes on this one. Bring back dueling. Hey, let them do it.
It feels really weird when we all start agreeing with memes.
I agree with memes more than I would ever actually let memes know.
That's a smart.
Yeah.
That's a smart idea. But no, I am curious. I am curious, specifically Farty, CSG, and Yorkie and Quinn, because I'm the only American here. Do you not see why I find it concerning that our politicians, because they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House, when they start even floating the idea of using military force against civilians who are largely unarmed, just exercising their right to peacefully protest, waving flags, you might consider them inflammatory or supremacist or this or that. The rhetoric going around from the media is bad enough, but when you start talking about use of actual military force against these people because you brand them domestic terrorists, I thought it was stupid when we were talking about Antifa like that. Like,
that's what I was going to ask if I could quickly pop in, because I understand exactly where you're going and what you're setting up. I completely know agree with you. If it comes to any point of any politician or any leader coming forward to say, well, you know, if we brand you this particular name and we all understand this particular name to be bad, is it okay if we shoot our own citizens because of this name that we don't have to actually prove? And if anybody just looks on the face of that and go, well, yeah, because they must be, otherwise why would the government do anything? It's like, okay, well, you don't like Trump, say, for instance, if you're on the left. Trump come out and decided that he was going to put Black Lives Matter and Antifa as a domestic terrorist group. Only one of those two has become one. But say, for instance, he did both. What would it then be to the point of, if you were able to get these Democrats that are putting this forward as legislation, if the Democrats put it forward through and it passed, why would Trump or somebody like Trump not be able to use it against you? Just because that you think that you have the arbitrary right to be able to decide who or what is a domestic terrorist without investigation properly and a right of trial means that somebody that you hate has that exact same power when they come into power. So mind your own power while you're in power, because otherwise you can transfer it to people you don't like.
Oh, see, that's a good point and an important distinction to make. So, like, we'll use Antifa and BLM as an example. When they were going around in Portland, Seattle, and you had a number of them, large or small, doesn't really matter, trying to burn down courthouses, trying to lock people inside police stations and light them on fire, throwing fireworks at people. Yeah, that's technically domestic terrorism. Now, do you brand the whole group as domestic terrorists for the sake of rounding them up or giving authority to shoot them? No, that is the last thing you want to do. But when you look at a group and say, like, okay, this group engages in domestic terrorist tactics, even if it's only a set part of the group, should we keep an eye on them? Should we watch them? Probably. It's probably a good idea. Just saying, probably a good idea. But do you advocate for use of force simply because somebody's walking around waving an Antifa flag? Because what we're seeing right now is not, people running around with Trump flags, throwing fireworks and trying to light courthouses on fire. They're not doing that. But yet they're still being treated as if they were. And this is where the dangerous side comes from. And this is what I was trying to explain to somebody on Twitter. is, look, people on the right have done stupid things like this. So have people on the left. If you throw a firework at someone point blank, yeah, you're probably committing a fucking violent act. And if you're doing so for the sake of pushing a political agenda or trying to, scare people into not assembling and not retaliate against you, yeah, technically that's terrorism. You should probably look into these organizations, especially if they are talking about this in groups and organizing, like, Proud Boys are going to be here, or Patriot Prayer is going to be there, or Oath Keepers are going to be here, and we go after them. Yeah, you should look at that. You should keep tabs on that. But when you're talking about sorry, Farty, real quick, because I'm almost done. When you're talking about just blatant branding everyone as, you have a Trump flag, so therefore you're a domestic terrorist, and because we brand you as that, use of military force against you should be, on the table. That's further than even Trump was considering. Like, that is a step way further than Trump ever even considered.
Yeah, well, see, it boils down a bit more to, I wish it was the old days where a terrorist was a militant, not not basically a civilian. Like the British used to determine a terrorist as somebody who is in a militia organisation that is not recognised by any sovereign government but still wears a uniform. And the IRA used to come under this classification because the balaclava is in fact their uniform. So it used to be a military thing completely, and now I find that the word terrorist is thrown around willy-nilly at things that aren't really terrorism. Like the guy who shot up the churches or the mosques in New Zealand. He wasn't a terrorist, he was just a fuckwit with a gun. And Antifa and BLM aren't fucking terrorist organisations. They're criminal organisations. They come under organised crime. They're just like a fucking glorified bikie gang, pretty much. And that's the way they should be seen.
Fatty, I'm afraid I have to correct you. It's not fuckwit with a gun, it's hero.
Well, he's a bit of a fuckwit because he went and stuffed all the New Zealand gun laws on the poor Kiwis that, had nothing to do with them. It's partially our fault because we had the chance to arrest this dickhead when he was still an Australian.
Actually, if I may, he's a fuckwit for one reason. He got caught.
Yeah, he broke the 12th commandment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna
I just like to point out that the views expressed on this stream are not necessarily the views expressed and upheld by everybody that participates in this stream.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are, CSG. You're in it now.
In that case, then I disagree with all of you, and he's a complete and utter terrorist for the simple actual point of definition that what he did was for political motivated reasoning. He wanted the left to fight with the right.
Oh, actually,
no, he was throwing shit around like fucking subscribe to PewDiePie, so we're gonna give him shit, and he got bloody the 4chan banned in Australia because he threw that name out. It was just a shit stirrer.
Did you actually get a chance to read his manifesto? I mean, it was a crazy fucking manifesto, but did you get a chance to actually read it?
Actually, I saw the entire video. I won't say how I got my hands on it, and I did have a chance to read the manifesto, and the dude was a freaking nut job.
Oh, no, I agree. He was a complete nut job that took the time to decide that he was going to write down the reasoning and rationale of what he was doing in a manifesto. Now, we can sit and say that, he was doing it for this reason and doing it for that reason. But as crazy as you may be, if you take the time to sit down and write why you're doing something, you may want to actually take the actual opinion of the person who sat down and wrote what he was trying to do, rather than us thinking, well, he was just crazy, so he did it for this reason.
Did you get across the part? I know we're very off topic, so I'll get back on the rails soon, but I just want to ask this. Did you get to the part where he was describing himself as an eco-fascist and actually outlined what he meant by it?
Yes, he was absolutely crazy and completely and utterly politically incorrect on what he was defining, but yes.
Well, I'd put it to you, the fact that the Kiwi courts have never given him a lick of fucking attention or anything like that, no publicity or anything like that. In most of the cases, they won't even have him appear in court, and all this kind of basically dictates that he did this to outrage everybody into fame.
Yeah, infamy. Well, not into fame, it was infamy. But that's the thing that I think most terrorists shouldn't be paraded around like a pariah simply because, oh, okay, you caught a fucking crazy person with a gun. Just don't give him the infamy, because people that are even remotely close to that mindset now think that they're going to be remembered in history throughout history because of what they did. Don't give them that sort of sense of justification for going out and shooting innocent people, regardless of what we think of religion. None of them were anything to do with terrorists.
Well, the thing is, ironically enough, what that guy believed, if you boil it down to its most simple points, is he thought that if he could just drum up enough hatred and vitriol, we'd all kill each other, which would be the best thing.
And he's not actually wrong, though, is he? Don't get me wrong. His actual points haven't actually come to fruition. But the point is, we didn't actually need him. We're doing it mostly by ourselves because of left versus right.
And the sad thing is, he's kind of a manifestation. We should have taken that as a canary in the coal mine, where there's enough hatred and vitriol amongst people that all it takes is a tiny little spark, and that spark spreads into, no pun intended, farty, a wildfire that none of us can hope to control. And he kind of proved that point.
You just had to say it like that to make a little jab at fire, didn't you?
I didn't actually intend it until I actually thought of it in my head, but he did prove a valid point. If you want to usher in a totalitarian, authoritarian government that's going to put their boot on your neck, you can do it the way he went about doing it. Or, other scenario, you drum up so much hatred between two groups of people that they end up killing each other off. Either way, goal achieved. People die, eco-fascism achieved. Earth survives, human beings die. That was his goal. He just wanted to kill people.
If I may, just for a moment, Ms. Murder points out that this guy was technically a spree shooter. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to you guys to talk about this, but she's claiming spree shooter, nothing more.
Yeah, that goes under new reclassification and all this kind of stuff, because it was under the Obama administration that a mass murderer only needed to kill 2 people, and then that was mass murder. Like, the fuck?
As far as I know, from a legal terminology now, I do not know what it is like for New Zealand and from Australia point of view, so I'm not saying I know this adamantly for their area, but from UK and US point of view, a spree shooter is somebody that goes off to shoot somebody without pre-planning it. He planned it for months, so he's not a spree shooter.
Well, technically, he was a spree shooter in the sense that he went and shot a bunch of people very rapidly and killed a lot of people very rapidly. Now,
yeah, I mean,
spree shooters can still.
I mean, it's kind of hard to kill hundreds of Muslims with a musket.
Yeah, I think you'll find the spree part of it actually comes from he didn't actually have a specific target. He just said, right, any people in this place is going to cop it. It wasn't oh, Muhammad, I hate you, fuck you. And then, buddy, Mustafa, fuck you. It was just like, right, you're all in front of me. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, but the target itself was the people that were in the actual mosque, because he wanted to kill a specific group of people. That was his target that he planned for months, and actually moved to another country to be able to carry out that singular plan, because that was the best place that he knew to be able to do it, because that was where the most were going to be.
Well, that's the thing. Sorry, real quick, Jensen. Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
No. I would like it noted that when I heard about what he was doing and the way he was doing it, he truly sounded like he was playing a computer game in his head. The action he took, he may as well have been playing, I don't know, Counter-Strike or something similar, because everything he did, everything about the way he did it, was as though he was playing that game. Now, that in itself disturbs me more than any of it. That he was treating human life as nothing more than bits on a computer screen.
You're not wrong. When I say spree shooter, the guy had a target, but it wasn't like he had an individual target. So was he a spree shooter? Yes. But it was also premeditated. And if anybody's actually seen the video, it was extremely well planned and extremely premeditated to the point where he had in like whiteout Sharpie like certain things written on the sides of the firearms involved that he knew was going to evoke a certain response and bring blame to a certain demographic or group of people. He even had the communist hammer and sickle on the scope of one of the weapons. This guy was not left leaning or right leaning. He was his own thing. I don't know what to call him. I don't really care to know. The guy was a nut job. But Jensen is correct. The way that this guy went about things was strangely quite like you would expect someone who plays a lot of Call of Duty, except he carried it out in real life.
Also, too, you have to look at it that, like, we in the Western world basically voice what's offensive and what outrages people and all this kind of stuff. And I've considered this myself as well. Like, if I was going to go out, I'd go and do some of the most outrageous bloody things to evoke the most shock and all this kind of stuff, just to fucking spite people. You know, just so it's just like, oh, well, you shouldn't have fucking told me this is offensive and outrageous and all this kind of shit. So, haha, fuck you, I'm going to do it just to fucking shock you.
And also, I saw what Sharati posted. Yeah, Sharati, we're agreeing with you. Spree shooting.
Whoa. That's not Sharati.
Oh, is that Miss Murder? Oh. I thought I saw Sharati because you dropped it quick. I thought it was Sharati.
Sorry.
No.
By the way, this may be the last time we hear anything from Doku, as one, either Miss Murder, or two, Sharati is going to kill him now.
Yep.
So everyone say goodbye to Doku. Bye, Doku.
F in chat for Doku.
Yeah, all right. I'll type F for myself. Anyways, no one is saying that a spree shooting can or cannot be pre-planned. A spree shooting is when you do not have a specific target. You just go and kill people. You go on a shooting spree. It's called that for a reason. It can be planned. It cannot be planned. That's not the point behind a spree shooting. This guy had a specific target in the sense that he was targeting a mosque. He was not targeting an individual.
We've all made mistakes. We've all made mistakes, and she probably is actually correct on this one. The definition of a spree killer compared to a mass murderer is somebody that actually goes to 2 or more locations in which he did, which by definition defines him as a spree shooter. It's to do with locations, not by how many people you kill.
Okay, I'm a horrible person for this, but when he said clearly there was a mistake, my brain registered that as clearly he wasn't going for a mosque. He must have been going for a synagogue.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Damn,
were you guys planning to keep the stream?
Well, to be fair, no.
Hey, it's not my channel. I don't care.
Just don't mention that he should have done it to YouTube headquarters, because then that would get us banned. Oh, fuck, I just did.
Never mentioned that it should have been done to YouTube. That would be terrible. They're bound to overreact if we said it really should happen to YouTube. But we'd never say that because that would be bad.
Well, someone tried it once, but it was a woman, so she fucked it up.
Wow, we're really going for broke, aren't we?
I'm not even joking. I'm being honest. Like, she only injured 2 people and killed herself.
Yeah.
You do realize that some of the most successful serial killers have actually been women, right?
Yes, it's true.
Especially the ones that don't get caught and the ones that operate the longest are generally women.
That's fair.
Yeah, serial killing, but not mass shooting.
Oh, I thought we were just talking about numbers of people being killed. Sorry, didn't realize.
That's fine.
But yeah, anyway, getting back to the point, like, the term terror shouldn't be thrown around so fucking often, because especially nowadays, they're throwing it around like it's just fucking saying hello, and fucking a lot of organisations and things of that nature fucking should not be branded as terrorists because they're just basically criminal organisations.
I mean, it depends on what you want to define terrorist as, because terrorist in itself just means that anybody that is going to use violence to intimidate people into their way of thinking.
Well, the very basic definition of it is to create fear, and a terrorist does not have to necessarily kill people. They only have to create fear of death. Like, to detonate a bomb doesn't necessarily have to kill people. Like, say with the IRA, for example, most of the time they used to fuck it up and get the timings wrong. But
No,
the
they
whole
didn't.
point of what they were
No, they
trying to do,
didn't. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They intentionally didn't actually set off quite a lot of the bombs because their intention was to fear. It was to say that we
that's what I
can
was
get to
about to
these
fucking
places.
go on with. For fuck's
Yeah,
sake.
But that's the point that I was making with the definition. The definition isn't to necessarily cause actual harm. It's to cause intimidation. Intimidation is part of fear.
If they're still fucking about and putting bombs near people, even if it's just a prank, bro, fucking just blow the cunt's head off and just leave him for the crows.
Well, intimidation doesn't need to actually be the same thing as fear. Like, people can be fearful of some things but not quite intimidated of it. So,
Sure. What conversation did you want to go on to, Doku? As you wanted to bring it back to a specific point or something?
Oh, the point I was going to bring it back to is actually, give me a second. Hold on. The cat is fucking shit up. Give me a second.
Of course he is.
Oh, it's a cat. So yeah.
Exactly. It's literally in statement. The cat's being normal. Okay.
Nope.
But-
the
The cat's doing cat things.
It's a cat. What the fuck are you gonna do?
Exactly.
So-
It's doing cat things.
So how have you been, CSG? I haven't seen you in ages.
I'm banned off of Twitter, banned off of Gab. I didn't even try Parler, so I'm doing well. Apparently, taking swipes at both sides of the political aisles is not acceptable by any stretch of the imagination on any side.
Yeah, well,
So
they can go fuck themselves.
But believe it or not, I got banned from Gab from having a go at Biden, and I got banned from Twitter for having a go at Trump.
What?
Wow, that's actually worthy of a cheers. That's
I'm
impressive.
doing well. Yeah, doing well.
What kind of fucking paradox world did you go into?
That's it.
I don't think people like it because, like most of you guys probably do, I normally try to cite everything, and eventually people just end up calling you names. So the only thing that you can do is just call them names, and I'm apparently better at calling people names than they are of me.
Well, then that just means they're soft, and they should feel bad.
I remember my first Twitter account got permanently banned because a fucking Muslim who was openly advocating for blowing people up for drawing Muhammad, and I kept saying Muhammad is a nonce, so I got banned pretty quick.
I never bothered with Twitter because I'm preemptively banned. I'm pretty fucking sure of that.
Twitter won't ban me. I've tried.
So CSG, you asked. Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Quinn. Go ahead, Yorkie, and then I'll go.
Yeah, Jensen, just let me borrow your Twitter account. I'd see if I can get deleted.
Oh, dude. The things I said should have got me banned, but they didn't. I've given up. Sorry, Doku.
I can't even use different email addresses to be able to set up a new account.
They got you.
They've got me
hardware banned.
permabanned. Yeah, they've got me permabanned. I'm not allowed to have an account anymore.
Yeah, you're hardware banned. That takes effort.
Well done.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
So I'm gonna for the YouTube gods, Susan, don't hate me. This is purely a hypothetical. It's hypothetical. It's for the sake of argument and debate. And I was just gonna ask CSG something, and now he's gone. Well then, that
It's all right. He's back. One sec.
I got so excited I played with my balls and realized I was using my phone.
God damn it, CSG. So for the sake of debate, since we were on the topic of terrorism. What means about domestic terrorism?
I didn't realize that I needed to talk to a child, but okay, continue.
We're going to talk about domestic terrorism. So, in the sense of domestic terrorism, if we're going by the definition of the use of intimidation, would it be safe to say that if a government is threatening use of force, be it through its police force or its military, let's keep this the United States for simplicity of argument. Just because you're waving a Trump flag, then you're going to be investigated by the FBI and then drawn in and then interrogated and then potentially face jail time because your political opinions are not that of what the establishment would like. Would you define that as terrorism?
Dictatorship.
Yeah, unfortunately, because it's to do with government, it can't unfortunately be terrorism unless it's to do with having, should we say, forming different cells into different countries. That could be classed as terrorism. But no, in general, because it's a country and it's doing it to its own people, it's a dictatorship.
Well, technically, say for
that's
instance, if Texas seceded from the Union, they could be looked at as being separatists, not exactly terrorists.
Yeah.
But well, it is dictatorship when you have a look at what they're doing. They're trying to make sure that Trump absolutely can't fucking get back in. The second impeachment was their first go, and they completely ignored the Constitution for that. And now they're going through his taxes like a dose of salts again, trying to get him a criminal charge so that they can't have a criminal in power anymore. So when they start doing that kind of shit, saying, right, no, you can't be president and absolutely fucking we're going to make sure you can't, they're kind of dictating on, your voting rights and all that kind of stuff that way. And I'm just wondering if a war does start in the next 4 years and the Democrats go for the fucking War Powers Act like fucking Obama tried to do a couple of times. Well, there you go. You're stuck with them then.
The reason I brought up the question is because, as both of you brought up, the government has a certain position of power that supersedes what the average person or a group of people might be able to achieve, and they're looked at in a different way, which is more dangerous. A government that views political opposition as a terrorist, or the government that how should I put this in a way that's not going to piss off YouTube?
It really depends. I'll be the hassle. It really depends, because it depends on what aspect you're saying. Because if you're saying that having a police force would be terroristic in being oppressive and using intimidation and fear tactics to make sure that you uphold to the laws, so to speak, then I would say that that's completely...
No, that's not the direction I'm going with. What I'm trying to say, without pissing off YouTube, because I'm trying to be careful with my words, a government that uses the threat of force or violence, or engages in the use of force and violence, not
Why
to
don't you
uphold
just say
the law.
China? Why don't you just say China?
Not to uphold the law, but to suppress and oppress its
Just say
political
China.
opponent.
Just say China or Russia.
Because we all know that YouTube's in the pocket of China before it's in the pocket of us.
No, they
just go-
don't actually make any money from China, believe it or not.
They
They're
don't
not
make any
allowed
money
in China.
anywhere, actually.
Not that we
Well,
know
just
of.
just say
technically.
London. Just say the rice paddies.
Welcome to the rice fields.
I thought we were
But yeah, you
pronounced
mean the government? Go on.
China.
So
Oh, China.
So a government using the threat of military power to suppress any political opposition. Would you consider that terrorist tactics?
No, it's called a dictatorship. Pure and simply dictatorship.
Yeah, well, there's one way that I'm not entirely sure exactly how they're going to do this, because it's in the Constitution that the United States military is not to be used as a police force. That's the exact reason why you've got National Guard. It's that one step between a police force and a military that you can use in both of those functions.
Well, Pelosi's trying it. So let's say it's not the government. Let's say it's an individual within the government, not the government as a whole.
You'll have to elaborate on that one.
So if there's one individual within the government that is trying to, let's use this example. If, let's say, I am operating as a member of Congress, and I call on the military to use force to suppress political opposition because I deem them a threat. I don't have, without presenting evidence, without due process, without due trial, I just deem them a threat. So I say, through dictate, as a dictator, even though technically I'm not an elected official, that we should use the military to suppress this political opposition because they are a threat to democracy, or more accurately, our political power. Does that make me as an individual a terrorist?
No, because I would say that being very, very careful on language and how I say this, when Black Lives Matter and Antifa were doing what they were doing, Donald Trump was calling for the National Guard to be put into place to quell the people, to disperse them. So I know that there is a trial that just went on and about how interpretation can be used, and I do not believe that he was doing it for this reason before we go down any of that road, but could be misconstrued as what you've just said. So no, I don't think it would have to be that.
Well, as I just mentioned, the National Guard is that one step up from the police and one step down from the military that can be used in both capacities. And it is actually their job in a mass riot to actually quell those kinds of situations. Just look at the LA riots back in the early 90s.
Oh, Farty,
the Asians on the roof did that.
Oh, Farty, that's why I'm asking specifically if I'm calling on the military, not the National Guard, not the feds, the military itself.
Well, see, it goes against their standing orders. So you do have a few fail-safes there. They can, say whatever they want in Congress and all that kind of stuff. That one particular individual, the hypothetical person that you're referring to, might be able to bang and scream and carry on all they want. But once it gets down to sort of like your brigade commanders and things of that nature, and MC would be able to elaborate on this way more than I can, you'll have mass dissent. You're like, you want us to go and fucking shoot civilians? That's not our job. We're not fucking firing on their own civilians. And you probably will have large amounts of higher ranks resigning over it and things of that nature. Basically, if it wasn't from the president and it was a bona fide case of domestic terrorism, there'd be just a mass mutiny pretty much. They'd just refuse those orders, because you can refuse orders that are unlawful in, Australian military, the British military, the American military, and those would be unlawful orders because it goes against their rules of engagement and fucking that other term I just used.
I would actually add to that and actually point to the fact that before they even gets to that point, it would actually have to be a ratification that would actually have to take place. So just because a senator or somebody in Congress is actually coming out and saying, oh, I want the military to attack these people because these people are bad. Yeah, the person saying that's absolutely goddamn crazy and is trying to use power to be able to get something that shouldn't be done. And I completely agree with you. But does that one person in Congress or in the House actually have any power to actually call for that? Even if you are the Speaker of the House?
Well,
but it does go against your constitution. So, and also with the National Guard, your National Guard's run by the state governors. So, like when the Texas governor found out how his blokes were being treated in the White House, near bloody Capitol Hill, whatever it was, he just went, "Nah, fuck it, first plane home. These cunts can go get fucked. They can protect themselves."
Okay, so I understand all that, and so this is the thread that I wanted to pull on. So, all of that aside, if I'm openly stating this, if this is known information to people, knowing that, we don't like you, we're going to protest against you, and it's like, oh, well, I'm still willing to call on the military to suppress anything that I consider to be an uprising or brand you domestic terrorists, and I threaten military force, whether it happens or not, isn't that threatening someone to push a political agenda? Doesn't that technically fall under the definition of terrorism?
No, the reason why it doesn't fall under the definition of terrorism is because you're actually under the belief, rightly or wrongly, that you're doing something to protect the nation. Now, you could argue that if somebody says that all Trump supporters are right-wing fanatics that are white supremacists, you can have that argument and saying, well, no, they're fucking not, you idiot. But if you honestly believe that and you're doing it for a form of protection, you're not actually trying to instigate a different political ideology. You're actually under the belief that you're defending your nation. I think that they're completely fucking crazy for it, but it's still about the belief and perception of why you're doing something.
The reason I bring this up is because
Just
go
real
ahead.
quick. And personally, for that one individual to be basically a terrorist, he'd have to have a cabal under him that would actually be able to make influence and things of that nature. One person can sit and scream and carry on all they want, but it's when they have the organisation underneath them to actually carry out that is when they do become a terrorist. And like I mentioned with the Constitution and all that kind of stuff, they don't have the structure underneath them. It'll just be that one person. So no, not a terrorist.
Normally, I would defer to if you have someone that you put in a position of power who is a former general that has people that answer to them that's willing to actually use force against political opposition. I think that would fit the definition, but that's not where I'm going with this.
Well, just very, very quickly, just because that somebody is willing to doesn't mean that they have the power to. So even if he was to say grab hold of power, and in his particular wing he decides that he's going to tell his cabal of people to go out and mass murder the people that he thinks are against the nation themselves will hold him to account. So just because that he thinks that he can do it doesn't mean that he has the power to do it.
And the people under him need to follow him as well. So that guy can kick and scream and carry on. And if it's unconstitutional, you'd want to hope that the higher ups below him will go, can't do that.
But if you were in a position of power and you did have someone who was willing to follow those orders, whether it's constitutional or not, so let's say that line was crossed. Before I go back to what I was going to say, let's say that line was crossed where these people, we've branded them as terrorists, even though the Constitution says the military cannot be used in this manner. I have branded this group of political, ideological opponents to be domestic terrorists, and I will call on the military to suppress them by any means necessary, whether it's constitutional or not. Does that make me at that point a domestic terrorist? Am I a dictator?
No, as Farty said before, it would make you a separatist simply because that you wouldn't have the backing of the whole of the government. It would be or your form of government. It would be you taking your precollections, of being able to instigate what you think is correct. So you would be a separatist. You would be your own form of dictator. In fact, you would actually be trying to form your own little nation. Your identification of what you want to do for your nation.
And
so
I think
you'd technically be a separatist.
Yeah, and I think you'll find that, before you did do anything against it, they'd look at it as treason anyways, and that's where they get you.
Yeah, and that's why it's be a separatist rather than a terrorist. Because even though that you're trying to go against the citizens, it would be a case of you would actually be believing that you're doing it for your nation, and your nation would be like, no, you're not doing it for us. So you'd be a separate entity of the nation, not a terrorist.
See, ironically enough, before I get back onto what I was going to talk to, because this brings up a different can of worms that I find interesting as far as topic of conversation goes. So looking at... God damn it. Drink. It's a running thing. If I say interesting, I'll drink for a second time. I have to drink.
Perfect timing, actually, because I just filled this Coke up with Bacardi. I didn't even realize we were still doing that. I just did it on impulse.
It's a standing rule. It's a standing rule. It's never going to go away. So
yeah, it's interesting like that, isn't it?
It is. So I have 2 points to bring up then. So the first one would be, all right, so it's not terrorism. You believe what you're doing is correct to maintain the security of the nation. So for all those who look like, oh, we're in a civil war, it's not a civil war between like North or South. It would more be a civil war between left and right. It's a ideological civil war. So
that's what happened beforehand. That's why it was the Union versus the Separatist, because the United States are called the Union.
Except in this case, it would be the East and the West Coast versus Middle America. But it would be a civil war drawn by ideological lines.
The same as what it was for the original Civil War. It was ideological lines. Whether you want it to be with the separation, or the idea of Congress taking too much liberties with powers, or if you want to just say it was to do with slavery, whatever way it was to do with ideological points of view, wars are always fought ideologically first.
Well, so the second point I want to bring up, because this actually throws a huge hole in what the Democrats have been pushing against Trump, and I've been trying to make this point to several other people on Twitter, which is a cesspool.
I wouldn't know.
Trust me, you're not missing anything. But if Trump and his supporters truly did believe that the election was fraudulent and it was stolen, they're doing nothing different than Pelosi saying, oh, these people are trying to overthrow the government. They truly believe what they're doing is correct. They're in the right. And what they're doing is to preserve the union, the state of democracy, to keep society together. They believe they're in the right. Which I'm not going to say which one is correct or incorrect, but it's clear that both sides think they are correct and they're in the right. So
sure, but that's the same with me and you, or if somebody who's religious and non-religious. I think that I'm correct, they would think that they're correct. But that's the point of government, is to be able to blend those two ideas of correct and actually find what the truth is. That's why you have the balancing scales of justice. It's the same thing for government, why you have the left and why you have the right, is to balance out the extremes. But we're not doing that at the minute.
I think it's more that it naturally plays itself out like that.
Yeah.
And there's a reason I say that the threat of force concerns me, and I don't care which side it's coming from, because rather than sitting down and having discussions like this and actually talking about why we think a certain thing or why we do not think a certain thing, it's more frequently becoming, I don't agree with you, and if you disagree with me, well, we're going to use force to silence dissenting opinion. We find ourselves heading down that road more and more rapidly, and I think that should concern everybody, regardless of what your political opinion is.
No, I completely and utterly agree with everything that you've just said there. One of the things that I've always thought is the most important thing to find out when you're talking to somebody on the opposite side of the aisle is find out why they think the way that they do. Because 9 times out of 10, the reason why they think what they do, regardless of whether you believe it is or isn't, is because they want to make their version or their understanding of society better. So instead of going full force on what you believe to make society better, it's better to uphold what they think and then explain why you think they're wrong. Right. Anyway, ladies and gents, I'm going to have to get off. It was a pleasure speaking to you all.
Right.
It's always nice talking to you, man.
We need
No
to
worries,
catch up
guys.
at some point.
We do. I'm still around on Discord. They haven't got me just yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not yet. Not yet.
I'm sure they will. Right. See you later, guys. Bye.
There you guys. Yeah.
Have a good one, dude.
Personally, I can't wait until China fucking kicks off and starts World War III, so that like everyone will stop this bullshit. We'll get rid of a whole bunch of soft cocks on the planet because we'll have to bring back conscription, and maybe we can go back to what we were like just after World War II, when you had people who fucking actually worked for the joint, getting into power and running the place, and we might be able to bring back the 1950s. And I'm really hoping that they kick it off in Vietnam, just so that we can say Vietnam 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Actually, Artie, there's a. Do you follow Black Pigeon Speaks at all?
Is he still around?
Yeah, his channel I think is retitled Felix Rex, but he had a new video just a couple of days ago. So China, you three should all get a kick out of this. China has identified a problem within its society about the feminization or demasculinization of men. I forget exactly what the word is. So it's early. I haven't slept. Don't. Emasculation. The emasculation of men.
Yeah, a little emperor syndrome.
Yeah, that's been going on for a couple decades.
Well, first off, China blames it on the CIA and a CIA program that was introduced through Japan, et cetera, et cetera. Details are not important. What is important is they've identified that it's propagated through education and pop culture, and their way to combat it is, put more male teachers in place, more PE, more sports, et cetera, et cetera. What normal people would actually think, and I hate to side with China on this one, but they're right. But do you know the term? This is what's funny. Do you know the term that they have, rather than using soy boys or beta bitches or cucks or anything like that?
Hmm?
They call them fresh little meat.
I thought they called them strawberries, or was that more specifically like white liberals?
Nope, they call emasculated pretty boy, soy boy, beta cuck bitches. They call them fresh little meat because they want to look like K-pop stars. And China's response is make them do PE classes, have more male teachers, and then toss them in the military because
well,
fresh
Pretty
little
fucking
meat.
based, actually.
It's based to
Well,
shit.
yeah, well, it's also called Little Emperor Syndrome, and it basically is a side effect from the one-child policy, where the males were going to be more valuable than the females and all this kind of stuff, and they're only allowed one child. So these little cunts got pampered like fuck all their lives. Never had to lift a bloody finger and all this kind of shit. And when they chuck them in the military and say, right, you're going down south across to the Taiwan Strait because you're going to invade fucking China, they're sitting on a bus crying their eyes out. Like, I'm going to die. They make me do work. Just partially the reason why I can't wait for them to invade Australia. Jesus, I'm going to have these cunts for breakfast.
Oh, that's why I find it. That's why I find it so damn hilarious because it's like I hate to agree with China, but China's based. It's like, nah,
Jensen,
bitch.
I just thought the perfect analogy for that for you two. That's basically some cheap shitty Imperial Guardsman unit charging planet Katacha.
Oh God. Ew. No. No, that's not good, man.
Oh, you're the son of an uncle's planetary governor. All right, go to Cadia.
Mhm.
Here's my pet spider. I live underneath him.
But no,
joking. That's the problem.
the reason I brought this up is because I hate to admit it, but I'm kind of on China's side on this one. Like, nah, your society is not going to survive with a bunch of K-pop looking beta bitches running around as your future males. Like that's just not going to work. The society does not survive that way. Like,
Well, it doesn't bloody help, when fucking their military prowess is so fucking pathetic, anyways. That up in the Karabakh Mountains, that they got into a fist fight with the Indians and lost twice as many people in a bloody fist fight. Fuck's sake!
Wait,
the Indians lost 20.
we-
The Indians reckon they lost about 40 or something like that. And this was a punch up.
Farty, hold on. Are we talking fatalities?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's bad.
And the Chinese even had dirty, great big bloody lumps of metal with fucking spikes and shit sticking out of them. They still came off second best.
Wow, I don't even know what to say to that. That's
I just
pretty
realised
bad.
something, Jensen. If conscription does become a thing again, that means there'd be like an extra few hundred or thousand football hooligans that now have a gun.
Yes, that's exactly what would happen. I've got one question based on these strawberries, emperors, blah blah blah. When did we stop calling them traps? When did this happen? Did I miss something?
Oh no, that's traps. It's where a man intentionally tries to look like a woman and pretend to be a woman.
Have you seen some of these people that do the K-pop stuff?
I ain't seen them in specific, but I've seen what traps look like.
Oh, see,
Yeah, no.
Jensen, this is the thing. They're not trying to look like women. They just want to look pretty, but they're still men. They're pretty boys.
Yeah,
very
they used to call that
very-
metrosexual.
Yeah.
It's not so much that they have more estrogen; they just lack testosterone.
Like I said, I'm doing this based on some of the people I've seen doing the K-pop. Okay, I am not joking. I was not sure what they were, and I'm pretty confident nor were they. Okay.
All right, so here's another funny little interlude about bloody China's military prowess, right? Yeah, Australia and America went in a 10-year-long war with Vietnam. In 1979, the Chinese tried and got their asses handed to them within a year, and they lost. Now, people give Australia shit for losing a war to emus, right? But have you fucking seen an emu? The cunts are fucking taller than you, right? The bastards can run faster than you, and they got velociraptor fucking claws on the end of their friggin' legs. You know, and we actually only sent out 3 guys and a couple of machine guns to try and fucking shoot them. But, okay, so we lost a war to fucking dirty, great big prehistoric fucking birds, right? China declared war on pigeons, and they lost.
That's just so very much. It really does. Anyway, last thing before it's time to leave. Does anybody have anything they want to say? No? Okay, I'm quiet.
Actually, I just googled something and I just found out something in 40K. I just discovered the Praetorian Guard. It's literally just cyborg British soldiers from the Victorian era.
Oh yes, they are outstanding, aren't they? Gotta love these guys. But if that's all, in that case, thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you were able to get some sort of entertainment out of the witcherings that we did. And if nothing else, hopefully Doku actually managed to say some of his thoughts. And who knows, perhaps it rings true to people. But nonetheless, I will speak to you all later. Anyone else? No? Cool. In that case. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.